Hello, and welcome to another design process video. Today we're going to talk about a criteria for success and developing a criteria for success for your design projects. Let's jump into it. This is the question. What is a criteria for success? Well, let's get into it. Well, a criteria for success is many things. It's a set of rules that we use to judge our design against the brief. It's a framework based on the brief that allows us to measure our design. It's a binary measuring tool. Now that means either our design outcome either meets the criteria or doesn't. There's no half measures there. And it's an objective process. It takes our analysis away from being how we feel to being what the brief demands. And it's a reflective tool. It allows us to reflect on our process and reflect on the techniques that we've used to create the design. So why do we create a criteria for success? It helps us further understand the brief and really get to grips with what it's asking us to do. It helps us ensure success. It's one of the measuring tools that we can use to make sure that we pass a brief, meet a brief, but also pass a module, pass a subject, make sure that we don't fail. It's a good learning tool because it allows us to see the project that we're working on from the point of view of the client, the person setting the brief, and the designer, the person creating the product, and an objective third person who's reviewing both of those things. It helps us connect with the consumer. Now we might say consumer, we might say customer, we might say audience, but it helps with a person who's going to engage with our work. In broader design circles, they might call this person the user. It helps us from a pragmatic level in fashion design, helps us predict sales. If we can guarantee that our product meets the needs of the brief in the most successful way possible, we can potentially predict that there will be some sales based on the product we've developed. As opposed to many designers who just produce things that they want to produce in the hopes that someone will buy them. So this is the brief that we've been working on as part of our example series, and if you haven't seen my video on how to unpack a brief, please watch that one first because it will make a lot more sense once you've seen it. But let's take a look at it. So here is our brief. Design a range of garments for a student to wear to a festival. Your range must be sustainable, functional and wearable. A fairly straightforward brief. A deceptively simple brief. So this is what our criteria for success might look like. At the top here, we have our criteria, and then a yes and a no. The criteria will be maybe a series of questions that your work has to answer in order to meet the needs of the brief. It'll either meet the needs of the brief, so we want as many ticks in the yes column as we can, ideally 100% ticks in the yes column, or it won't meet the brief. So it'll either answer the question or it won't. Let's jump into it. So based on the brief we've just looked at, based on the brief we've just looked at, have I designed a range of garments? Are they appealing to a student? Are they suitable for a festival? Are they sustainable? Are they functional? Are they on budget? And are they within time frame? And each of these questions has been drawn directly from the brief that we looked at previously. Let's take another look back at that brief very quickly. So the question is design a range of garments. So we need a range of garments there for a student. So make sure they're a student to wear to a festival. Okay, so there's some clear specifications there, which you should have pulled out of the brief when you unpacked it. Your range must be sustainable, so there need to be a range. It needs to be sustainable, functional, and wearable. Okay, now these last two, are they on budget? Are they within the time frame? Now they're kind of big, broad things for us to look at. Now every brief will be governed by a budget, and every brief will be governed by a time frame. Now this is the basic criteria for success. Now this is something you can develop very, very easily based on the brief, and you can literally put it in your sketchbook and several times if you want to, and tick and cross where things do or don't meet the criteria. But let's make it a bit more exciting. Now I've added a few extra in to talk about your design process. So they are, has my process been innovative? Now this is because we want your work, or you want your work, to be exciting for the consumer, for the user, for the viewer, and for everyone engaging in the project. Have I explored a wide range of inspiration? So for example, what we're asking here might be, have you explored all the avenues? Have you looked at everything that your user might be engaging with? Have I explored a range of design methods and processes? Is there something that you could have done but didn't do that might improve the innovation, improve your outcome? Have I tested my ideas? This is a big one. Have you actually trialed your ideas in a real world setting or a simulated real world setting? Just thinking something might work or guessing it might work or thinking it'll be okay is not enough. Have I received meaningful feedback? So have you engaged in giving and receiving feedback, both with your client or your audience or your consumer or your user, and with the person who set the brief? Okay, let's take a look. So typically you might run through the criteria for success after you've developed some initial ideas and maybe had some feedback and thought, okay, yes, this is the idea that's for me. And we might see something that looks a bit like this. Now, you will have ticked yes on a few and no on a few, and that's about right. But these are the ones we need to look at. So why have we ticked no on these things? So we would then refine our design and refine our outcome through process to make sure that we get to a point where we're ticking yes to everything. Now that is fine. So once you've ticked everything, you know you're meeting the brief. Okay? In which case, things are looking pretty good. You know, your work meets the brief, you're okay, things are feeling positive, I guarantee. We've got our yeses here, that's fantastic. But there's another step. Not only do we have to be able to say yes, but we have to have measurable evidence to underpin that yes statement. So we have to have evidence to say that our response, yes, is correct. Otherwise, we could just tick yes on everything. So let's take a look at some. I've used the criteria for success again in a different way. So this is what you can do after you've ticked yes to everything. You can take your criteria for success and you can alter these categories. So instead of a yes and no, we've got a what and a where. So this is really about your evidence. So what evidence is there and where is the evidence located? The same criteria as we've used before. Have I designed a range of garments? Well, there's 500 process drawings and they're in my sketchbook. Are they appealing to a student? Well, I've got records of focus groups that I've met with students and spoken to them about, and I've got some trend research to suggest that they would be. That information's all in my sketchbook. Are they suitable for a festival? Yes, I've got festivals from around the images from festivals from around the UK that I took firsthand whilst wearing my clothes and field testing them. Literally, I wrote field testing, but field testing the work out in the field, literally in a festival, probably a festival field, but testing to see if they work at a festival. Are they sustainable? Yes, I've got plenty of testing and trialing, and I've got lots of secondary research into sustainable processes and looking at life cycle of garments and all those kinds of things. And that information is all located in my sketchbook. Are they functional? Yes, I've got plenty of photographs of me wearing them in the field, or maybe a model wearing them in the field, or maybe a user testing them in the field, and plenty of photographs of that with analysis of the photographs. And they are located, surprisingly enough, in my sketchbook. Are they on budget? Crikey, yes. I've got some receipts for fabric. I've got costing documentation that tells me how many hours I worked and how much I should get paid per hour and what the final outcome of the cost would be. And how does this compare to my competitors? And all of that is kept, you guessed it, in your sketchbook. Are they within time frames? Yes, of course. Here's my critical path plan, and based on that critical path plan, an actual calendar review. So my critical path plan is where I project, here's how long it's going to take me to do something. And then every day or every week, I review my calendar and work out actually how long it really took to do something. You'll be surprised the differences. Where would that information be? I'm not sure. Oh, sketchbook. Has my process been innovative? Of course it has. I've got images of new processes I've developed, and I've looked at precedents in how other designers have gone about this type of project, how they've explored a range of innovative approaches, and how they've explored different design processes. And that stuff is located in my sketchbook. Have I explored a wide range of inspirations? Of course, I've developed a bunch of mood boards. I've explored concepts, and I've got precedent boards, and all of that stuff is located in my sketchbook. Have I explored a range of design methods and processes? Of course, I've got plenty of process images, both sketches and photograph and illustrations. I've got heaps of sketches to kind of work small ideas out to big ideas out. I've got plenty of samples and tests where I've made some things to test how they work. I've sampled a few ideas to see how they function. And that stuff, surprisingly enough, is hidden in my sketchbook. Have I tested my ideas? Of course. I've run some focus groups and I've got some field tests to test my ideas, and I've written up my results for the focus group and those field tests in my sketchbook. Have I received meaningful feedback? Of course. I've got transcripts and recording of my focus groups and the feedback that I've had about my work. I've participated in feedback sessions, both at university and in private, talking with my peers, talking with my tutors, talking with my users about the product, and I've adjusted the work based on that. And all of the record of all those things is kept, you guessed it, in my sketchbook. So once you've done that, once you've defined the evidence that supports your yeses, can you go further? Well, you definitely can. Now, this is really about understanding design process, understanding about how you think. Now, you're probably going to feel uncomfortable through a lot of this, and that's okay. Feeling uncomfortable is about you learning new things. We should never be afraid from taking risks. Okay. So, our next one is a criteria for success, and you can see we've got two different measuring tools here. We've got why, and we've got how. Now, I'm not going to take you through this specifically with each of these examples, but you can see that we can use this tool, the criteria for success, over and over and over again. So, for example, have I designed a range of clothes, a range of garments? Why would I design a range of garments? Why do they need those range of garments? How can I tell they're a range of garments? What is it about them that tells me they are a range of garments? And we can extend that all the way through this criteria, and it will really give you a very strong understanding of the brief. And, it will definitely make a big difference to your final result. Thank you so much for watching. Follow us on Instagram, like and subscribe, as all the cool kids say. Something jazzy at the end. Cheers.